Good afternoon, everyone. I am Chris Berryman, coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. Welcome, everyone, to our Bringing Humanity Together live stream today, which is, of course, Share and Care with Sandy Chernoff today. This is one of the three open forums under the Bringing Humanity Together umbrella where people can discuss topics related to the workplace, humanity in the workplace in a very positive and constructive way. We want to know what the issues are that are out there that people are facing, and it is our goal to work both with employees and employers to bring humanity back to the workforce. We always will be going live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all at 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Feel free to invite your friends, family, and you even share the replay, which will be on the hashtag replay. So as you see, my two great partners and co-hosts with the most, Sandy Chernoff was for Sharing Care for Sandy today, and then Humanity Happy Hour is hosted by none other than Carla Fedigan. As you jump on, feel free to comment in the chat where you're jumping on from, whether it be on LinkedIn Live or on YouTube. We would love to reach out to you and have a great and engaging conversation with you. And again, like I said, if you're watching this on the replay, please share the comment and use the hashtag replay and tell us where you're calling in from. And also, if there's any comments, suggestions, or questions you want to do, please feel free to put them in the chat. And if you want to even join into the chat, we'll be placing the green room link here shortly. And just to let you know, 10 people are allowed to join the live session. So if you'd like to join, just let us know and we'll get you in. So here's the hostess of the hour, Sandy Chernoff. How you doing today, Sandy?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thank you very much. And as you and I emailed back and forth and decided that we're going to talk a little bit about technology today. Here's the thing. Today, if you're not here or you're not on somebody's laptop or desktop, yes, Carla, exactly. And basically, you don't exist because people are Google everything. And for a lot of things, as a business, if they can't find you on their phone or on their computer, you basically don't exist. I mean, sometimes people will find you because they're walking down the street if you have a storefront. But for many of us who have different kinds of businesses that don't have storefronts, they'll never find us. So basically, we don't exist. And the other thing for human beings that needs to start happening more and more is the fact that basically humans don't like change. They're much more comfortable with the things that they know, and they tend to draw a line in the sand and stay behind it. But today, especially because we're living in a very technological world, change has become the new norm, and people who are not willing to embrace it get left behind. So it is very, very important to keep an open mind and be ready to learn something new. I mean, I did a webinar the other day for a group, and I had to use something I'd never even heard of before. It was called Teams, and it's some kind of a platform that has breakout rooms, and in the breakout rooms, the people actually are allowed to talk to each other, not just use a chat box. So it was kind of interesting. The guy who hired me was really great. The day before, he showed me how to upload my PowerPoint and all the different things that I was going to have to do to get this up and running for the webinar. And he was very helpful, and I thanked him. And then so the next morning I could actually upload my PowerPoint and get things going. So that was good. And I now have that on my computer. I downloaded that program. But, again, it was something else I had to learn. And when I started my business, I had a business card. And I thought that, when I did workshops, people would come up and ask me for my business card. But that's not what they asked. They came up and asked me if I had a website. And back when I started this, I wasn't even sure what a website was. So I went back to my kids. Yeah, Carla, kind of sad. But I went back to my kids. And as it turned out at the time, one of my nieces was dabbling in web design in high school. So I went over to my brother's house and I took I had a nice business card by then because I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and Peter designed my card for me. And Caitlin did my first website for me. And she's very artistic. So I had one of these big flash pages on the front with an enter button. And I used the website as a virtual brochure. if you will. But then I started to realize that people got business through their website. I wasn't getting any business through the website. So I go back to my kids, and of course my daughter looks at me and like I've landed from the moon. And she said, well, you need your SEO fixed. Well, at that time I had no idea what SEO was. So she connected me with Nathaniel, who specializes in this. And he looked at the website. He phoned me. He said, you have this lovely artistic flash page on the front of your website. It completely blocks you from the internet. So that's the first thing that has to go. And then he started talking text speak to me. So I stopped him and I said, Nathaniel, just speak to me in English. Tell me what you need from me, and I'll be very happy to provide it. I now know what a lot of those terms are, but back, 17 years ago or whatever, I had no idea what he was saying to me. So he laughed. And he said, okay, I need this and this and this from you, whatever. So now he laughs at me because when I had my website transferred onto WordPress, I just want to see who this is. Hold on 1 second. Hello? Good, nobody there. I had the gal who did it because I had a local gal. I didn't have Nathaniel do it because he's on the island. I had her come to my house and show me how to use the back end of WordPress because it's sort of like a Word document, but you got to know how to maneuver it. So she did. And I've actually been able to, I actually figured out how to use the blog thing so that I could store blogs and everything. And my daughter was very surprised that I could do that. I said, well, you try a few things. It's not the end of the world. And I've now even figured out how to add pages and put it under the right heading. And every once in a while, something weird happens, and I don't know how to fix it. So I just send Nathaniel an email, and he takes care of it. But by and large, I can manage a lot of things on the back end of WordPress now, pretty much. And I know how to backlink things, and I know how to do a lot of things on the back end. But it was a very steep learning curve because for a person my age, I didn't grow up with computers. I mean, I really didn't. I had a typewriter. And when I went away to university, I had a portable typewriter that I took with me so that I could type my papers when I was away. But I really had never even seen a computer until, I saw one of these huge things that took up whole rooms, And even when I was in university, I didn't use a computer. I mean, I just didn't. And my mom made me take typing in high school, and I thanked her for that. It was a good thing to do. So I made my kids do the same thing. But of course, by the time they went off to university, they had to take computers because it was already, into that and emailing and, all the other stuff that comes along with that. And, so they've grown up with it. And I told you that my two grandsons, it's actually very funny because, of course, they've definitely grown up with all of this. And whenever I screw up the remote, I just call Jack over. I said, Jack, I don't know what's going on. He just looks at me and he goes, Safta, you screw it up every time you use it. And he fixes it, and he's 10. So, I mean, it's what you get used to. And in the business world today, you have to learn how to use the programs that are available to you so that you can look up to date, because otherwise you look out of step. And when I was teaching in an entrepreneurial program, I told the students that unless they were very techie themselves and could build their own website, they needed to have a line in their budget for their business to hire someone to do it for them so that they would have a good website that would populate not only on a computer but on a cell phone, and that would have good SEO, and that they would have to learn some of the things that Google does, because Google sends bots out. And if your website isn't growing with information that they feel is appropriate, that's why you got a blog on your site, your Google Analytics go down the toilet. So it's very important to understand the things that you have to do. And from a business perspective, we have to have a website, because if we don't, people can't find us, and people don't know. I don't know who this is. I'm not answering the phone. They can leave a message. So, it's a matter of what are we doing? Well, it's very important. I mean, I had to learn how to use PowerPoint, because initially when I started doing workshops, this is really funny, I used an overhead projector with those transparencies.
Wow.
So I was at a big law firm, and about the third or fourth workshop that I did, the HR manager came up to me and she said, you might want to learn how to use PowerPoint. That's kind of
That was rather direct.
yeah. And so I laughed and I said, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know what to do with it. She said, well, I think you should learn. So I talked to my son. Mark's very good on the computer. And of course, when you open up PowerPoint, up comes a little box and it says, pick a template. So I said to him, this box keeps coming up and telling me to pick a template. First of all, I don't know what a template is. And if I picked one, I wouldn't know what to do with it. So of course, he laughed hysterically, thought this was really, really funny. So what I did, my daughter has a girlfriend who's very good at PowerPoint. So I had Haley come to my house and show me what to do, how to pick a template and what to do with the template, and also how to take information off of Word documents and so on and so forth. And then I met somebody on LinkedIn who is a PowerPoint expert, and I learned a lot of things from Taylor. I mean, he's really smart, and I learned a lot of things. So my PowerPoints are now pretty good. In fact, I've even had compliments on them. I was giving a workshop for a cold storage company. And at the end of the workshop, I went around the table, asked everybody to tell me what they liked best about the workshop. So one guy said, I liked your PowerPoint. I went, what? He said, yeah, most PowerPoints have nothing but text on them. He said, yours had very little text and nice diagrams and pictures. And he said it was cool. And I said, well, the thing is this, that PowerPoint is a tool. And everything you want to tell your audience shouldn't be on your PowerPoint slides, because the truth is your audience can read the slides faster than you can speak them, which means that they disengage. And, they're waiting for you to change to the next slide. So what do they need you for? You can sit at the back room. So I finished reading the slide. Good. I'll change it for you now. I mean, what's the point? So I told him, I said, well, if you're going to be teaching these other people about the safety techniques that they need to know, and if you're going to be using PowerPoint to do it, let this be a good lesson for you. Don't put everything you're going to tell them on your slide. It's like we used to use those card decks, little cards that would give us information. I said, what you want to do is you should only have maximum 4 or 5 bullet points on a slide, and it shouldn't be everything you're going to say. It should be the hint to you. So if you see the word or the phrase, you know what you're going to say about that. And I mean, it's just a tool. It's not your presentation per se. It's just a tool. It gives the speaker the hints of what they want to talk about, reminds them of what they want to say. But everything you're going to tell them shouldn't be on your slide. And it's just a matter of understanding how to work it and, how to animate your slides appropriately and so on and so forth. And most people, especially if you've got a picture on your slide that is relevant to what you're talking about, they'll probably remember it better, because most people are better at visual, memory than they are at just, verbal stuff. And so it's a matter of understanding how to engage your audience. And in addition, the other thing that I do, because I have a education background, is that when I teach a concept, after I've taught it, I give the participants something to do. So either they answer a questionnaire and we debrief it, or they do something with a partner and we debrief it, or they do something in a group and we debrief it. And that way they get to try out what they just learned, and we get to discuss what they came up with in terms of, I'm not teaching, none of this stuff is rocket science, Chris. None of the things we're going to be teaching these employers and their employees is rocket science. It's really not. You put a reasonably intelligent group of people together in a room, and they'll come up with anything we can think of. So, and it's better if they come up with it, because they'll remember it if they come up with it, rather than if we spoon feed it. Now, sometimes they miss something that I think is important. And if they do, I will add it in. But by and large, they usually come up with anything I would have on a slide. So it's really important to have people be active in their learning experience so that they can remember it better. And that's the advantage of having the technology that we have today. With this pandemic that we're living in right now, if we didn't have the kind of technology that we have today, with people working remotely from home, and how do you keep in touch with your workers? How do you keep in touch with your colleagues? How do you keep in touch with your friends? If we didn't have the things that we have today, it would be very, very hard to stay in touch with people. And with so many people working from home, The people who are working from home still need to be in communication with their colleagues and with their supervisors or managers or bosses or whatever. And they have to do that on a regular basis, particularly if we're working on projects together. So having the opportunity to be on Zoom or, whatever, so that we can compare notes and, show what we're doing and so on and so forth is really important. And we're fortunate to have the technology that we have today, but people need to learn how to use it because it is essential to things getting done. And again, we're fortunate because, if this was going on a few years ago, we wouldn't have had the things that we have today, and it would have been much more difficult. And it will be very interesting to see what happens after the pandemic about how many businesses that actually go back to offices or if people will continue to work from home. It saves time, it saves gas, it saves, travel time and all sorts of things. And maybe a lot of people will prefer to stay home. And again, from a business perspective, you don't have to rent a big office anymore if you don't have all your employees in your office. But we still need to communicate, and we need to do that on a regular basis so that people know what's going on. And that's why the technology is it's nice to have. And we need to leverage it and use it appropriately when it's necessary and as it's necessary. And it definitely is. And that's why people need to learn how to use it. As I said, I didn't grow up with computers. So for me, this whole thing, when I started with this business, was a very steep learning curve for me because I had to learn how to use Word better. I had to learn how to use my smartphone. I had to learn how to use PowerPoint. I had to learn how to use Excel. I had to learn how to deal with WordPress. I had to learn how to use a learning management system because I had turned a lot of my live workshops into e-learning programs. You have to learn how to use these things. And as an older person, it was a challenge because it wasn't anything that was intuitive to me. And so it was just something that you had to learn. But from a personal perspective, I get bored if I don't get to learn new things. So for me, it was fun. It was interesting. It gave me something else to learn how to use. But for many people, that's not how they feel. And so it makes them crazy. And I'm sorry that, people don't like to learn new things and so on and so forth. But today, it's a must. You just absolutely have to do that. My kids, this is really funny. My husband just had his birthday, and Mother's Day, as you know, was just on Sunday. So our kids were deciding what they were going to get us. So what they're going to get each of us is a Fitbit. So now they want us to go online and choose the kind of Fitbit that we want. So I looked at some of them and I said to my daughter this morning, I said, Elisa, I don't know enough about these Fitbits to be able to choose one because they're all different. She goes, Mom, I said, you have to come over here and help me. Because then you got to get an app on your phone so that you can, see what your heart rate is and all this other stuff. So, I said, you got to come over here and help me. Why don't you show me what to do? You know that I'll get it, but you have to come and help me choose what I'm going to get here. Well, Mark and I didn't want to do that. I said, well, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to help me.
So what'd you end up getting?
I haven't gotten anything yet because Lisa hasn't come over yet, Carla. She'll either come over tomorrow or Friday, whichever day we go golfing. So, she'll help me that day. But it's just, again, this is another technological thing that a lot of people are using. And because I work out regularly and because I walk pretty much every day, it's probably would be a good thing for me to get. Both my kids have it. And I think that, again, it's just another thing to learn. But I think that, again, we need to take advantage of the technology that's available to us today. So whether you're in business or you're not, it doesn't matter. But particularly in business, you look out of step. You look like you're not keeping up if you're not doing things technologically today. Because all the young people walk around with their phone like this. I don't know how they don't kill themselves, to be frank with you. I saw a guy yesterday riding his bike on his phone.
Oh,
Really?
Oh my word.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, He was riding his bike and he was on his phone. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's as bad as driving a car and being on your phone.
Was he pedaling and holding it, or?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
No kidding. So, and you watch people walking down the street, and they're walking down the street and they're looking at their phone. I mean, I'm amazed they don't trip on the curb or get hit by a car.
Oh, there are plenty of cell phone wipeout videos out there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, they're very handy. There's no question about it. It's very handy to have these phones, because if you get into a difficult situation, or if you need to contact somebody and tell them you're going to be a little bit later or whatever, it is very convenient to have these phones. I mean, one of the things that Yale and I do when we go on our walks, if we go to a different neighborhood, but it's a neighborhood where we have friends, so I take my phone, and then when we come to the friend's house, I stand on the sidewalk and I phone them. And I say, hey, come outside on your porch. We'll have a visit. And everybody loves it because, of course, nobody's seeing anyone. So this way we can have a visit with our friends, and we can, be
nice,
because we're on the sidewalk, they're on their porch, and we can see some of our friends. So we do that, and they love it. They think it's really funny. They're very surprised when it happens. But, again, it's another convenience with a cell phone. It just makes it, nice to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the texting thing, I mean, I text my son and daughter-in-law a lot. I don't always phone them. I do have on my cell phone, I have long distance in Canada, so I can phone them and it doesn't cost me anything. But sometimes they're busy because both of them are working from home now, so I don't really want to, bug them. So I just will send them a text and tell them, when you got a minute, give me a shout. But it's just a matter of, again, and it's a nice way to stay in touch with customers and, colleagues and clients and whatever. And with email, a lot of people send emails out to their clients, especially if they have a new offering or, whatever. So it's good to have a good email list to keep your clients up to date on what you're doing. And again, it's using the technology. And if we're not using it, then we're missing the boat, because it is available to help us in so many different ways. And if you're not leveraging it, again, you're just missing opportunities. So it's very important to sort of be on top of these things. I don't know, what else to say, but especially for older people, it's more difficult because we're not comfortable with it. I'm much more comfortable now, certainly, than I was when I started, because I don't have a choice. But, I mean, I'm approaching my mid-70s, guys. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. And most of my friends, they're all retired. They think I'm crazy, with what I'm doing. And I said, well, I'm having fun. It's very interesting, on top of which it's good for your brain, because brains are designed to create new neurons as long as we're alive, but only if we challenge it to open new neural pathways. So people who are robots and do exactly the same thing in the same way day after day after day, it's not very healthy for your brain. And people who retire and have no plan of what they're going to do, both physically and mentally, go downhill very quickly, because it's that old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's very important to have a plan of what you're going to do. So, when you retire, you can take up things that you've never had the time to take up before, like you could take up a musical instrument, you could start to paint or to sculpt, or you could learn how to play golf, Carla, or you could.
I'm going to retire when I expire.
And, or you can learn how to play bridge. All these things are.
That's too much to remember.
Well, bridge is a good game. That's why it's good, because it does.
I can't even remember how many shots I've taken. I'm like, is that 3 or is that 4?
Well, it's just, it's a matter of training yourself to do some different things, and it's very healthy for your brain to do that. The other thing is, of course, is we need to get adequate sleep. And a lot of people don't do that. That's when your memories get consolidated. That's when your body heals itself. And if you're not getting enough sleep, you don't function very well, because you can't remember things and you can't concentrate, and it's very bad. And a lot of people think they can get away with like 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night. No, you can't. You need at least 7 or 8. And if you're not doing that, you're going to have trouble. I mean, kids need more, but adults need that much sleep. A lot of people think it's crazy, but it's not. You need it. And it helps your memory. It helps your brain. And also, we got to eat healthy. You know, people need to understand that your brain will thank you if you eat healthy, and so will your body. It's just a matter of what are you doing? How are you living your life? And if you want to enjoy your life and enjoy your business and enjoy the things that you do, then you have to take care of yourself. And it means learning new things and living a healthy life. And the people who do that will live longer and enjoy their life more. I mean, I have a lot of fun with what I do because I find it very interesting. I learn at every workshop that I give because it's always surprising what people come up with. One of the times that I did the workshop on memory and how to enhance it, I have a one exercise, and one half of the room gets a list of words. The other half of the room gets that list of words in a sentence. And I tell them to look at their words very carefully and then turn the paper over and write down as many of the words as you can remember. Well, of course, the people who have the sentence can remember the words because they just write down the sentence, right? But if you have a list, it's much harder to remember the words. One woman at one workshop that I gave turned that list of words into the sentence. She's the only person that has ever done that. So it was kind of interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. She actually took that list of words and turned it into a sentence. So I told her, I said, you're the only person that's ever done that. Good for you.
Yeah.
Because they wondered why, one half of the room, they all could remember all the words and the other half of the room struggled because they couldn't. And even the exercise that I do in that workshop is I tell everybody, just sit back and relax. I'm going to read you a list of words. And then I'm going to tell you why you remembered the words that you did. And they kind of look at me and they laugh. And then I read them the list of words and I say, okay, how many people got the word pillow? People put up their hand. Very good. How many people got the word dream? And they put up their hand. I said, that's very good. That's an example of primacy and recency. We usually remember the first thing that we hear and the last thing that we hear. And I say, okay, how many people got the word night? People put up their hand. Excellent. Night was in the list 3 times. We usually remember things that are repeated. And then I say, okay, how many people got the word artichoke? And they all laugh. People put up their hand. I said, yeah, artichoke was smack dab in the middle of that list. And it didn't relate to any of the other words in the list because they all related to sleep. So it was a surprise. It was unusual. It stood out. We remember things that stand out like that. And then I pause and I look around the room and I say, okay, how many people got the word bed? And some people proudly put up their hand. And I go, that's very interesting. Bed wasn't in the list. So they laugh. And I say, well, that's an example of false memory. And it's the reason why eyewitnesses are not necessarily that reliable, because unless they write down everything they saw and heard immediately after the incident, hours, days, weeks, months, years later, they will not remember the specific details, but their mind will fill in those gaps with things that make sense, but are not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of understanding how your mind works. And I use that exercise in my customer service workshops, because what I tell business people is this: people will remember the experience they had the first time they come to your business. They will remember the experience they had the last time they came to your business. And if every time they come in, they have a consistently positive experience in your business, then they will have a good feeling about your business. And that's why your people need to be trained. And people who come in regularly, whoever is at your front desk, should know their name so that when they come in, they can say, hi, Chris, how are you doing? Nice to see you again. That is just, the icing on the cake, if you will.
Yes.
It's a matter of, somebody recognized me. So a business that doesn't have a good culture and has a lot of turnover, then every time the person comes in, there'll be a different person at the desk. They won't know who they are. They're not going to be comfortable. So it's a matter of understanding, what are you trying to do? Well, if you want to have a business where people keep coming, and if they're having a good time and they're enjoying their experience, then they will probably continue to come. And in addition, they will likely tell other people about the experience they're having in your business, which means that you will get referred business. So it's very, very important to pay attention to the people who are your regular customers, because it's a lot easier to keep regular customers than it is to get new ones. So you want to be nice to them, and you want to teach your people what to do. And if you have a good staff and you have a good relationship with your staff, you won't have turnover, and they will learn the customers' names because they will get to know them. And that's a very positive thing for a business. And, it also helps you stand out from your competition. Because if your business has good staff and you provide good product and services, whatever it is you're selling, and they have a positive, good experience every time they come, then why would they go to some other business? They wouldn't. So it's a matter of what are you doing? And again, when I was practicing dental hygiene, initially we didn't use computers in the office. So I had a Cardex on every patient. So anything a patient told me, I wrote it down in their Cardex. And then I always came in early and I would review the cards on the patients that were coming in that day. So, if somebody's daughter was getting married or they got a dog or they went on a holiday, or it was in their Cardex, I would remind myself. But once we got computerized, there was a whole section in the computer for everyone's chart where you could make those notes. So again, I could still come in early and check those notes, but it was, everybody could do it. So, everyone would know. So, if you came in, Chris, I'd say to you, so how was your vacation in Florida? Did you have a nice time when you went on your fishing trip? And then they sort of think, whoa, how did she remember that? Well, they don't need to know I cheated. They just they listen to them, right? So it's just a matter of how are you developing that trust, that respect, that rapport with your clients and your patients and, whatever else. And if you can do those things, then, you're going to make them feel really good. They're going to want to keep coming back. It's very important to establish that rapport. And it's easy to do. It's just a matter of, figuring out. I mean, ultimately, dentistry went very digital. I mean, we even were doing x-rays digitally and, so we didn't have to do the developing and, all this other stuff anymore. So it became very digital. And again, you have to learn. You don't have a choice. Every single operatory had a computer at it. I mean, it's just, it was what it was. And that's just the way things went. So it's a matter of understanding most jobs are going to have computerized something. So, and if some of the programs or some of the things we do make it more efficient and more timely and help us remember things, whatever, then it's an advantage. So there's nothing wrong with learning, and different professions, different jobs have different kinds of programs that make sense for them depending on what they do. So it's just a matter of learning what those are or getting a techie person to adapt it so that it's appropriate for your business, whatever it is. But again, this is something that people need to pay attention to. It's something that they need to understand is important, and it can really help. If we want to bring humanity to the workplace, then if we can, bring some of these things that help us to remember things and to pay attention to things and to be on top of things, then it's a win all the way around. It really is. It's a win for us. It's a win for the business.
And I'm glad you said that, Sandy. And I'm glad you said that because, see, I truly believe in my heart of hearts, and I also want to get your perspectives on it too, Carla and Sandy, that once we have a natural balance of where we sit within said technology and understand what the tools are being used for, is to make life easier on us, but yet again can be able to have that human connection. Just like when you had that Rolodex, you went from the paper trail to the digital trail, and now you know when Carla's birthday is or when she's going to go to 18-hole therapy next month and that kind of thing. So you come back and say, hey, Carla, what did you shoot on your 18-hole therapy this week? I mean, that's going to be such a great thing because I really want to have that balance. And
you see, what we
understand
used to do, to speak exactly to that, Chris, is we used to send out birthday cards to all the patients. Because
real.
So they all got cards. And, again, what does that say to the patient? boy, they knew when my birthday was. They sent me a card. I mean, that's really, like it's remarkable, but it's not that hard when you
Well, it's
have.
one thing to know somebody's birthday, but to take the time to send a card, that's nice.
Well, it's just something we decided to do, Carla. We
Yeah.
decided.
Well, I mean, that's like an added touch. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, it's like an added touch. Like one of the fertility practices that I worked at, after somebody went through their procedure and they were waiting that 10 days or so for their first pregnancy test, we would send them a card just to let them know that we know that this is a difficult time as you wait, you know. And people want to know that people think about them,
Exactly. That we're paying attention, because very few people ever get really listened to. So when we show them that we actually listen to them, it's like, whoa, they kind of sit up and pay attention. And it leaves an incredibly wonderful impression on people. And they're going to keep coming back to your business because you obviously care about them. And you're indicating it by doing those kinds of things. And it's not that hard, particularly with the technology we have available to us today. Leverage it. I mean, seriously, it's not that big a deal. I mean, my husband remembers all those things in his head, so he doesn't really need the computer. But, most mornings when he leaves for work, he says, you gotta send an email to so-and-so today. It's their birthday. Or you gotta send an email to so-and-so today. It's their anniversary. He knows when all this stuff is. We have a book, and I often will check the book. But Neil remembers. I mean, he just does. His sister's the same. So, it's a matter of, and it is a wonderful thing to do. I usually send an email with, some happy birthday or happy anniversary or whatever. To my grandsons, I'll send them a card because they love getting mail. I mean, it's so excited if they get a mail, a card in the mail. But it's just a matter of, what are we doing? And as business people, if we have some way of getting that information from people and send them cards, you can belong to an organization called Send Out Cards.
Mm-hmm.
They have all kinds of cards, and it's really easy to do it. And they have actually really nice cards, and they also have gifts, so you can even send them chocolates or whatever. And it's just a matter, again, got to show people that you care. And if you do, they're going to stay with you. So whether it's your own employees or it's your clients or your customers or whatever, you've got to show people that you care, because a lot of places don't do that, and a lot of people don't do it. So it helps us to stand out from the competition by doing things that are different and that mean something to people. Like, when someone comes in and you recognize them, so you say, "Hi, Carla, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Did you play golf on the weekend?"
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. It's just a matter of knowing the person and knowing what they do. Or how's your dog? How did that surgery go? Is the dog doing well? It's a matter of remembering the things that you know about the person, and they sort of sit back like, "Oh, I remembered that. She didn't like whatever." So it's just a matter of what are we doing? And it's very important to establish those relationships with the people that we work with and that we serve and so on and so forth. Because if we do those things and we show them that we care and that we're actually paying attention to them, they're not going to go anywhere else. They're really not. And it's the same thing with employees. When an employee, it's up to the leadership of an organization to recognize the potential in their people and to recognize that potential and help them to develop it so that they can reach their potential. And whether that means giving them opportunities so they can use the skills that they have, or providing them with training that enhances the skills they have or adds more skills so that they can increase their responsibility and have some new challenging things to do at work. I mean, these are things that show a person that you care because you value them, you're making an investment in them, and you're giving them opportunities to do new things, and that keeps them engaged. It keeps them interested. It's going to keep them coming back. And it just shows that you encourage them and you support them and you value them, and all those things are very important to people. And if they feel valued and they feel that they're supported and encouraged, they're not going anywhere. They're really not. They're going to stay in this organization because they like it. They are given opportunities to expand their responsibilities, which keeps them interested. Maybe down the road, they'll get a promotion. I mean, and it's not necessarily that hard for an organization to do those kinds of things. They just have to set up a budget so that they can do it. And whether you send them out to do it or you have them do e-learning or you bring someone in, doesn't matter. It's a matter of figuring out what works best for you and for your people and from a time perspective and so on and so forth. And blended learning can work quite well, where maybe they take an e-learning course and then we expand upon it with a live workshop. I mean, there's lots of ways of doing this, and it's just a matter of getting the message across that we value you and we acknowledge your contributions to our organization, and we value our customers, and we hope that you do as well. And when someone likes the place that they work, feels that it's a good place, I don't think you need to worry about customer service. They're going to want the customers to be happy too, so they'll be nice to them. They'll pay attention to them. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of paying attention to the things that are important to give your business credibility and give your business longevity, because that's really what business is about. I mean, if we're going to be in business for a short period of time, then there's not much point in making that investment. But if we're going to really have a business that's thriving and growing and is going to continue, then we have to do the things that are going to make that happen.
So let me ask you then, Carla, in the many years that you were in the nursing field, how has technology either worked good for you, or was it something that you actually had to learn and say, hey, I'm going to take a little bit more extra time to learn? How was it for you in the 40 years that you were in nursing? How did that kind of trend go?
I didn't start working with computers until 2000, the late 90s, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm trying to think back that far. We're talking 20-something years ago. That was more like Microsoft, and we didn't have like appointment scheduling and all that kind of stuff. If we did, it was a little archaic. I didn't get into electronic medical recording until 2004.
Wow.
And then when I look back at it in its infancy, it's really quite comical to look at what we were doing back then compared to what we were doing in 2015, 2016. And then I went to another practice to work, and they still had paper charts. And so that was like a big step backwards. And then they were integrating electronic medical records before I left. Well, the summer of 2019. I don't think they went live until like October of that year. But in the interim, they had adopted one program that they were going to use, one system that they were going to use, and they got several months down the line into that one, and they decided they didn't like it, so they went to another one. So we had to retrain on another system that we were going to eventually learn, and being analytical, some of us were like, well, what happens if we do it this way? And this happens. And they go, well, I don't know. We haven't figured that out yet. And I'm like, okay. I left in September 2019, and I heard shortly after Christmas from a friend of mine that's still there saying that they are actually ditching that system and going with another system. And I'm just like, oh, I just can't imagine. But you have to be open to want to learn it. And it can actually be fun. It can be quite difficult and trying at the beginning. But I'm one of these people that likes to dig in and figure out how things work and where to go and what to do. And it is just by repetition that you learn these new systems, and you have to be open to learning them.
Absolutely.
Well,
When
for
I was
me,
when I was in graduate school and going to different clinical sites, I think I learned 4 different EMR systems, electronic medical record systems. So,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they were all similar in a lot of ways, but they were quite helpful too. I mean, all the information that you wanted about a patient was really at your fingertips. You could actually upload a picture. So when you're on the phone, you could actually kind of see their picture, and that kind of clued you into remembering more about them,
Yeah.
And there was a place you could put little notes, and of course you had their birthday and, just different things that you could put in,
We had pictures of every patient, every
where it
chart.
really became kind of a negative thing that I'm one of these do it once, touch it once, be done with it type people. I don't want to make notes and go back and do it later. Okay.
right.
No, lunchtime is not for time to go back and do your charting. Okay. Practices would get so busy that they had literally one of the systems, I think it's Epic, on the patient portal on their chart. There was literally a yellow sticky note to where you could actually put in notes there. Like,
Nice.
well, usually a medical assistant had met with them ahead of time, so you knew what their chief complaints were and you knew what their vitals were, if they actually put them in. So, you're at the mercy of other people having access to putting in the right stuff. But it got to be where it was so busy that people would just write in the little yellow Post-it note section, like, what was going on with them, what their diagnosis was, and what prescriptions they gave them, like short, sweet, to the point. And then they go and sit down at lunch and do their charting. And I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to be. And I know nurses to this day that go home and do their charting at home. And I said, that's not a job. You're not getting paid for that, So I think
Well,
that in that respect, it's become really a monster.
right, right. Well, for me, I have learned so many different systems and so many different areas of work wherever I've been at, whether it be in retail or in the restaurant or whatever. And I'm like what you said earlier, Sandy. There are some people who actually have to visually see and learn it and kind of touch it, feel it, and all that all at the same time. I'm that way. You just can't just tell me and say, "Hey, this is the way you got to do this. This is the way you got to do that." I'll be like, "No, you got to show me. I got to have hands on." It's
I
like
gotta have
I
this
tell,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's like I tell Carla all the time. Me and you gonna have to go over Canva again together because I know how you do what you do when it comes to Canva, and I'm see at least I'm open to learning that, and I am because like I said I want to know more, and it's like what my father taught me at an early young age. If I can learn one new thing a day, I've had a productive day, and I view that when it comes to technology. If we use it to the benefit of everyone, then you have that win scenario.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I got to kind of take my time into it. I just can't go head rushing into it and say, "Oh, I got it." Next thing I know, I might end up doing someone else's chart wrong, and this has happened. And my wife has seen this that where that you put one patient's information in there, or if it's let's say a customer or whatever, put that information in to someone else's information, and then when they come in and pick up their scripts, they're like, "Wait a minute, this is not me. How did you get this wrong?"
Mm-hmm.
And I end up doing that and saying, hold on, we gotta fix it. And I've seen that happen too. So you gotta be on your toes when you do that, especially because right now she tells me a lot of stuff is like 90% e-scripts. So when it comes to these scripts, you got to make sure what you're doing when it comes to these scripts. Because if you don't, everything can go wrong in a heartbeat right there.
Oh yeah.
See, it was easy in the dental office because when you were working on the patient, you had their chart up,
Yeah.
on the screen.
Right.
So you could just, easily do whatever. And it was easy in dentistry, Carla, because while they were having their fluoride, when they're sitting there, I could do the charting, or while I'm waiting for the dentist to come and do the exam, I could do the charting, where there was time that I could do it. And so it wasn't something that I did at my lunch hour, that I stayed after work to do or whatever. There was time during the appointment where I could get some of that stuff done. So it wasn't really a huge issue. But it is important that the information be put in, because other people are going to work on those patients. And if they don't have the information they need, it's not helpful. So it's very important that things be in there and they be up to date, and anything that can be helpful, because sometimes we have difficult patients. And if you know how to deal with them, then those notes can also go in the chart, so that the next person who deals with this difficult patient will have some insight into what might work, so that they won't be so difficult. It's just a matter of putting the information in so that everybody gets the advantage. And it's not that difficult. It's just a matter of sharing. I mean, we used to talk about it in staff meetings. If somebody had been successful with a patient that's a real pain in the neck, then they would share what they did. Well, this is how I did it. I didn't have a problem with them. Really? Well, I'm going to have to try that next time I see them.
It reminds me of that story that you told about me about the kid that came into the practice one time, Sandy, who had autism, and you had to deal with that. That was really unique.
Well, again, Chris, if you're going to be successful with patients and you're going to actually help them so that they will do the things that you're telling them are good for them, the only way you can do that is if you have trust and rapport with them. Because if they don't think that you care about them or that you have their best interests at heart, they won't do what you're asking them to do. So then you don't win and you don't help them. So it's not good. And that's why it's very important to establish a good relationship with a patient. You've got to gain their trust. You have to build rapport. And you have to let them know that you care about them, and that the things that you are offering, it's not about me, it's about you. This is what's going to be best for you. And here's why. And give them reasons why it's going to be advantageous for them. Just like, people who have heart conditions, or who have an artificial hip, or, whatever. Because when you have something like that in your body, where you have a weak spot, if you will, that's where the bad bacteria are going to go. Mm-hmm. And they're going to cause you problems. So when you have some kind of medical issue, you have to be much more careful with how you take care of yourself, because you're swallowing those bacteria. Yeah. They're going to find a bad place to go, and it's going to be wherever you have a problem. So if you have a heart problem, or you have a kidney problem, or you have a fake knee or a fake hip or something, that's where it's going to lodge, and that's going to cause you problems. And most of those places are very hard to get at in terms of getting antibiotics in there. So it's very important that patients understand why you want them to do the things you want them to do, why it's important for their overall health. It isn't just their oral health. They have to remember, your head's attached to your body.
Yeah.
And, things go on. It's all connected here, so you got to pay attention. Mm-hmm. You have to get their attention by packaging your message, because the message is all the same, but you got to package it so that it's appropriate for that individual, so that they will sit up and pay attention. Because if you don't do that, it's going to go over their head, in one ear, out the other. We're not going to be able to help them. So it really, really is important to package the message appropriately. And that depends on who you're dealing with, and maybe even what they do. I used to talk to construction people about, would you build a house without a good foundation? Well, the foundation in your mouth is your bone. And if you're not keeping your mouth healthy, that bone is going to start dissolving, which means your teeth are going to start falling out. Is that what you want to have happen? It's a matter of getting the
and your gums are going to start receding.
Yeah. So, it's a matter of them understanding, and they can relate to that, because they know in construction you need a good foundation. You don't have a good foundation, the house is going to fall down. So it's a matter of speaking to them in language that they can relate to, so they get it. It's just like I told you about the student that was talking to her dad, giving him oral self-care, and he wasn't listening. And I told her, I said, your dad's not listening. He sat up in the chair and he went, how did you know that? I said, I've been married for over 40 years. I know that look. You've gone into your inbox. So we sort of sat up and I said, Sarah, your dad has a heart condition. You have to talk to him about his heart and how this relates to his heart health. So he's sitting up in the chair. He's saying, how do you know that? I said, I read your chart. I said, and it's very important that you listen to your daughter to not only keep your mouth healthy, but to keep your heart healthy. So then he started, paying attention to her. So it's just a matter of, what are you doing? I mean, she knew that her dad had a heart condition. Well, I'm sorry, you've got to package your message appropriately for the person that's sitting in your chair. And he wasn't paying any attention to her whatsoever. It was that blank look, he wasn't
Like
listening.
she's just going through what she's supposed to do. I'm just sitting here as a warm body. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. It's not how
I'm
it
just
works.
the model.
Yeah. So it was funny, but he, as soon as I said that, he sat on, how did you know that? I said, well, I've been married for over 40 years. I know that look.
I love that comeback.
So what is the call to action on today's great and engaging conversation, Sandy?
Well, I think what people have to do, Chris, is I think that they have to embrace the technology. I think it's something that we have to all learn how to use. Because today, number one, it's an expectation. And in addition, for the success of any business, we have to have a good website. We have to have trained our people so that they know how to deal with our customers and with each other. It's a matter of what are we doing and what kinds of records are we keeping so that we can do some of the things that we've talked about doing. And it's just a matter of getting everybody on board with it. And yes, it is a learning experience, but there's nothing wrong with that. Learning is good. And mistakes will be made, but mistakes are opportunities to learn. If we don't make mistakes, we never learn anything. So it's a matter of understanding that this is something that we need to do. We're going to do it together. We're going to give you the support you need so that you can learn how to do this properly. And I think if it's handled in a positive way like that, then I think that the people will be more open to it. And those that are really resistant and don't want to do it, well, then I guess they don't belong in our organization anymore.
There you go.
Yeah, they got to go. Because if this is the direction we're going in and this is how we're going to get there, then everybody needs to get
on the wagon.
Yeah. And, there needs to be sufficient time for everyone to learn these things and appropriate support to help them. But once that's done, if people are still not getting on board and don't want to do it, then I'm sorry, then they don't belong in your organization anymore. Because
I'm glad you said that because it could also be two things, Sandy. They are intentional in not wanting to learn, or two, they are intentional in wanting to learn, but they just may not grasp it enough, and they may need to be coached on a little bit more, and that's understandable, and I get that.
You need to give them more support.
Yeah, exactly.
If you think that they're a valuable person for our organization, you take them aside and you say, "You're struggling a little. Let me help you."
Right.
Or let me get so and so to help you, or whatever. And that's up to the leadership to pay attention to these things. It's really, really important to be paying attention to what's going on with your people. If you're not doing that, you're missing the boat. And people who feel that, they're not noticed or they're not listened to, and why would they stay? And as we all know, turnover is very expensive. So, it's not worth it. You've got to recognize the potential. You've got to help your people to be the best they can be. And the more you do that, the happier they're going to be. And if they're happy, they're going to work better and they're not going anywhere. So It's just a matter of what are you doing? And it's not that hard. This is not rocket science. This is just humanity. How are we dealing with people? Well, if we're human, let's be human. So let's be nice to people. Let's support people. Let's acknowledge people's contributions. Let's thank them. Let's do things that make them feel good. We do things that make them feel good, they're going nowhere. They're going to stay with us. So it's just a matter of what are we doing? Because leadership isn't about the leader. It's about everybody that they're leading. And the more they can pay attention to that and help people to be the best they can be, then the better the organization is going to be.
Yep.
And if they're doing it, then the colleagues can help each other. Maybe there's somebody that learned this really quickly. Well, maybe they can help a colleague that's struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that,
Exactly.
Again, this is not rocket science. It's just a matter of paying attention. And if we pay attention to each other and help each other, it's a win-win all the way around. Because the person
That
who's
it
helping the other person is going to feel good, and the
that
person
it is.
who's
That it is.
going to feel good. It's just,
Oh,
win-win-win. So
yep.
it's like you say, Chris, if you help me and I help you, then we help we. I mean,
Mhm.
that's basically what this is. And it's just a
Yes.
matter of paying attention. And if we pay attention, everybody wins.
Yep.
Everybody wins.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Yes. Ladies, as always, another great and engaging conversation with Share and Care with Sandy today. I'm so thankful and honored for your insights once again. Um, I'm actually going to tomorrow on Conversation for Humanity. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into when it comes to technology and humanity. I'm going to really dive into that tomorrow. So, everyone, thank you for joining us today for another great and engaging conversation with Sandy Chernoff with Share and Care. Tomorrow, Conversation for Humanity will be on at 2:45 for the meet and greet, and we'll start at 3. And then, of course, Humanity Happy Hour will be on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and I think we'll be talking 18-hole therapy probably again, maybe.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see.
Because someone will be golfing sometime tomorrow. Hopefully. You
Yeah,
never
no,
know.
my husband's supposed to play on Thursday. I'll probably be keeping the dog from barking from the FedEx guy or something like that. So, or who knows, he might go out the front door and run around the front yard during a call. I don't know.
And pretty soon, I wanted to have this done, and I'm glad you mentioned Cosmo. We got to have a show with the official dogs of Bringing Humanity Together. Apple, Cosmo, Brian's dog that's the unique
Yeah,
unto itself.
yeah.
I mean, that'd be
We'll let
awesome.
them run the show. We'll let them have their own show. Yeah.
Exactly. Ladies,
My
as
lady
always, thank
coworkers.
you so much.
Okay. Enjoy your evenings, everyone. Take care and
All
stay
right.
safe.
Have a good
Have a
one.
great day,
Bye.
Sandy. See you soon.
Bye.